Good morning. Morning, thank you. Oh, geez, that's not the clicky thing. That is a mouse. Okay. You can at least that lightens the room slightly, because I'm going to jump in straight with a question. I've worked with actuaries for the last 25 years of my life, so my social skills have been sadly depleted. So this is the icebreaker, although clearly grabbing the mouse was the icebreaker. Could I ask you, with the little doofer on the right-hand side, to press 1, 2, 3, 4, in terms of how well do you think you understand your workforce? I'm not talking about Bill Gates level that you know their registration numbers, which is just a bit weirdy, but let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, if you can press those buttons now. Okay. I think it's fair to say, quite well. The interesting thing is it well enough for them to function as optimal as you would like them to be? And I guess that is the general gist of what I'm going to talk about and how we can potentially use data to do some of that assessment in terms of understanding needs. Simple as that. Okay, on to the main point of the presentation, and thank you very much indeed for that. I talk about vision for 2020, and needless to say, there's a pun in 2020 because it's about vision. I am sure you all got that straight away. It's interesting because also it reflects exactly what John was saying about clarity of vision. Now, I could lose half the audience quite quickly with this next bit, but my little peer group, when we meet in curry houses or wine bars or pubs, see, I have a good social spread, a new topic of conversation has crept up. Bifocal lenses. That clearly means I am getting older. First, you're very dismissive because there's an extra cost involved. And then I go to Vision Express, there are other opticians you could go to. And they said, Damian, your eyesight is deteriorating rapidly. We recommend you use varifocal lenses. And I'm thinking, you're doing this because you want my money. You're not doing it for my benefit. And I had a choice, and that choice was I could live my life with the single view that I had, or indeed I could adopt a better, more rounded vision of what my future could look like. Now, the only reason I'm going to do that is if I think that the money is worth paying. So I conceptualized it with 2 points. One, it may stop me standing in front of a bus and curtailing the lovely life I have. Secondly, at least I could read my notes. So, no upsetting John there. But the whole idea is I took a decision to invest in something because I hope it gives me clarity. And I hope in return that I get a payback. Okay, let's get personal about Barnett Waddingham for a second, because my job actually is to go out and talk to people, but I don't actually know many of you in this room. And the reason for that is that Barnett Waddingham very rarely strays into what I would say the traditional HR marketplace. There's good reason for that. We are pension specialists. We deal with mainly trustees, DB. But again, step back, and this is this whole focus of change. This isn't just about you guys in this room. This is about an organisation such as Barnett Waddingham with 750 employees, predominantly receiving money from what is a dying industry, defined benefits. It's not dead, but how long has it got to go? Well, we have 135 actuaries. We get 135 different answers. But I tell you one thing, as someone sitting on the other side of the fence, I would be working out that as soon as it became less of a balance risk, this may be the finance directors rather than HR, but as soon as it will become a commoditized product, which means the fees will be reduced. Likewise, we talk about DC. Now, I've done pensions for almost 25 years of my life. I don't buy this big story about pensions anymore. I think actually it's getting a little bit tenuous. And the reason for that is that's the environment that a pension scheme works in. When you are chained to the employer. Think about DB and the benefit structures. 2/3 final salary over 40 years. What did that come from? That came from the simple thing, until 25 you weren't an employee, you were an apprentice. At 25 you became an employee. You worked for the same employer to 65, and at 65 you retired. Sadly, you died at 66, but that's why you had a DB scheme. It was nice and cheap to provide. Longevity, what a bastard. But that's the environment it works in. Is that the reality of the world we live in now? No. Average tenure of UK is the lowest among the OECD countries. The problem we have is you can't chain your employees to the workforce. They are free to make decisions of whether they stay, go, whether they work hard or not. And the problem is, if they make the decision to go, it costs a lot of money to replace. Be it simply the cost of the hire, or all the training and everything else that goes with it. So I have started to look at, one, because we know that within Barnett Waddingham there is a lifespan. We must look to diversify. We must think of the skill sets that we have within that business that we can take into different directions. And really, when I started looking at this as a partner of the business and thinking these issues through, I kept on coming back to this whole thing about human capital. Surely this is what it is about. A blending, and I think this phrase is really good, or whatever quote you would want to describe it. Knowledge and skills and competencies and attributes that I bring as an individual into a business for my reward, which would be salary or my work-life balance or the culture of the firm or whatever floats my boat. But in the same way, you as an employer have the duty of care back to me to keep me trained, to keep me focused, to provide me with that salary and the flexibility of choice that is pertinent to my needs. And in return, you'll get the productivity, the low absenteeism, etc. It's a partnership between. I think that when you Google, certainly in the UK, human capital, it tends to be recruitment. I don't know why. It maybe it's just that human capital, they replace one person with another. In the UK, we've got to change that, and certainly in the US, it's far more advanced. Human capital is that. It's how you work with talent. Deloitte's talked about a survey, I think it was released yesterday, 87% of people. It's about the culture and engagement of your workforce. We do a lot of enterprise risk management within our corporate side of the business. We're already strongly diversifying away from just DB. Talent risk is always top or within the top three. It's really important. And I think Deepa, when she did her talk, was absolutely spot on. I couldn't ask for a better scene setting of how I think that future needs to look. Because when you talk to your employees, and the surveys that we do, we've got a YB Well survey in terms of the health aspect of our business, and we have a Generation Y, which is looking at more holistic wealth issues that each of the age cohorts, etc., face. Your employees aren't necessarily happy where they are. 25% nearly are worried about job security. That's got nothing to do with benefits. What I would actually want to profess now is, the more I work with HR, the more I realise, actually, I don't understand HR. You do HR. I do benefits. But we can work in partnership to achieve good things. But me telling you what your job is, I know a fraction of what you do. And I think that's really important to know. I'm not here to tell you how to suck eggs and what's important. But I think job security, that's something that sits very much in your domain. Interestingly, 44% don't feel that their employer is supporting them in that healthy life. And yet I think we would all profess that that is what we would like to do. In fact, when we ask employers, we do employee surveys to understand their issues and concerns. We then flip it to the employer and say, hey, what do you think about everything? 63% think that actually it's really important. 1% think that you offer a very high. And is that because of the cost issues? Is it because? And Deepa nailed it. It's not about spending more. What I think it is about using data to assess what you're spending your money on now, and is it hitting the mark? Look, I've got 135 actuaries with me, Of course I'm going to use their analytical skill sets. That's really important because I think that's how you actually are looking at the future. How do we look at big data and how do we interpret that with the human resources team? And I think it's important as well because on my little journeys that I do, the one thing I keep hearing is finance directors talk to me about cost. The vision for any business probably goes to about 3 years if you're really, really lucky. And yet you're looking at human talent that you want to be there a lot longer. So there's a disconnect immediately. So how do you bridge that disconnect? By proving business plan wise what you're trying to do is for the good of the company. So how do companies, and again, this is a journey for Barnett Waddingham. This is us now, the TED type environment of how do we think the world is going to look. Companies kind of put themselves with a big splodge. Either it's an access, forget what the accesses are. If it's high spend on benefits, you Google. If it's low spend, it's because maybe you don't care. Who knows? If you're indifferent or you're paternalistic, look, you know what the accesses look like. You know what kind of business you want to run. And then you just do a big splodge and say, that's us, that's our business. Barnett Waddingham is a great example. We are a partnership. Okay, what does that actually mean? We're very paternalistic. Okay, what does that mean? It's easy to do a splodge and say, that's it. It's interesting when you talk to some people and they say, we just want to be average. Do you want to employ average employees? Oh, God, no. So think. Because I think that's wrong. Because actually what you need to do is start delving down within your business and go, do you know what? Business critical to us. For what we are doing and how we are doing it now, the future, who really is important for us to concentrate our efforts on? And again, that's a point that was made in the earlier sessions. Doing that analysis, who's business critical, be it the productivity, be it. And it's interesting because you could turn around and say in an investment bank, it's all those really important people that make all those very, very, very big decisions. And that's why we pay them absolutely astronomical wages, which sadly they now can't put into a pension scheme. But actually, if you were potentially Tesco's or a low margin business, and a lot of your workforce sits in that transient splodge, and you're thinking, well, are they really business critical? Well, you're a low margin business. If I can get stickiness from those people, lower absenteeism from those people, higher retention from those people, actually, that has a dramatic impact in terms of the potential of my bottom line. So it's not just a straightforward X, Y, Z. It could be it's an ABC. Look at data in lots of different ways. You've got to cut it lots and lots of ways. And what you may find out is an organisation, actually your priorities are skewed to those different groups within you, be it age, cohorts, whatever it may well be. The amount of companies I say this to that almost recoil in horror that you could treat people differently. You pay them all differently. There's a starter. You have grades. You already assess people. Maybe what you need to do is start stepping back and going, actually, it's about on-target earnings. And that earnings could be the way that we look to design the benefits for them. How do we motivate people? Northerners like cars. Have you ever drove in London? I live in London. I live in Clapham Junction. I wouldn't get in a car if you paid me. That's why I am a Northerner. So, of course I'm going to have a car. Seems obvious, but actually you never know. So look at how you differentiate. It's not a homogeneous mess splodge. It's got to be targeted. Otherwise, you are wasting money. You're not hitting the nail. So how do we go about starting to put some order around what you as a business have? Because you have lots of data. Some of you work in organisations where you are very, very, very comfortable doing data analysis. Potentially the problem, I think as referred to before, is that if you're close to the business, the analysis is skewed because of being within it. You analyse it through something. It's the sieve. And our sieve is the 6 pillars. We had 7 pillars on the PwC man. We've only got 6, but we'll give you a reason why those 6 are important. And then it is about this assessment of, if I've done something, analytics to identify problems, issues, and concerns, consultancy to deliver the solutions that are appropriate, and then basically the governance structure to ensure what I've done is correct and it remains the right thing. Because you know what? Priorities change every single day of the week. So that's our approach. So looking at those in kind of a little bit more detail, starting with data. As an organisation, you have huge amounts of data from things that are very easy. How much are we paying on this PMI scheme? How much are we paying on this death and service scheme? How much is the group income protection costing us? You can tell my leaning is very much benefits. The pension scheme, the liabilities, they are knowns. Where's the absenteeism coming from? How is that impacting us? The age of the people that we work for, the indebtedness of the people we work for. My God, we sit there in auto-enrolment getting a load of people with household debt to save for an event that's 45 years away. How dumb is that? They need to be looking at where they are now. And I know you've got Neighbour talking about these kind of issues later. Wonderful company, let them talk more about it. But you can understand some issues. The problem is pulling that into one area so you can assess it properly. For us, we have started with this thought process of the 6 pillars. We're early days. This is us starting to try and intellectualize what it looks like, which is why I talk about 2020. Things that are important to you as an organisation and also the individuals that sit behind it, the job security, protection, support, the financial security of your workforce, the health of that workforce, and clearly the buzz at the moment, that kind of work-life balance. We can get people to work 6 hours a day instead of 7, and we still have that productivity, and they're really, really happy. Okay, so there's lots of buzzes. And then there's the fundamental of how you actually achieve that. And again, so little of this is actually purely from simply a benefit design. And this is why it's not my issue as an employee benefit consultancy to come. It sits with you guys. This is your baby, your company, your peers that you work with. How do we implement the strategy to ensure that where we have red lights flashing, that there is an issue with line management, that those issues are actually highlighted and dealt with. If we've got absenteeism, that they are dealt with. To do that, you've got to see the output. And this is one that we have. This is our Be Well tool. What we do with Be Well is simply, we look at all your claims experience and cost of your policies. We extrapolate that data and we can predict it going forward over 3 and 5 and 10 years to say, if you do nothing, then this is the potential cost that you may have to the business. PMI is a worry because PMI inflation cost is quite high. It's the next DB is my thought process on PMI. But you have now got data in front of you. You can see the potential costs. The question mark is what you want to do. Because the answer is we now know what the cost potential issue is and we're going to live with it because we're comfortable. Or you may identify that actually the root cause of absenteeism is from a single issue. And actually what we're going to do is look to divert our spend in terms of trying to deal with the issues that are impacting our business so actually we can curtail the increased inflationary costs to us in terms of the group income protection, group life, PMI, whichever it may well be. On top of that, we also work on that 6 pillars, again, asking individual members how they feel connected to the business around those 6 things. We use kind of online surveys, the focus groups that Deepa discussed as well, to really flesh out the issues that your members, employees face. And again, to me, most of this is about tweaking the existing design to be more pertinent to their needs. No more than that. And it is not about spending more. The way that we've gone about it within our own organisation, simply, is that we were employee benefits. So I've joined the company 2.5 years. We were an employee benefit organisation. We had a risk business, a PMI business, an income protection business. We had a pensions business. And I said that, in terms of the workplace, it's about the issues that your members face, that kind of idea that you can't just look at retirement, you've got to look indebtedness, you've got to look at the aspirations, certainly say in London, of Help to Buy ISAs and how they play a role in terms of making your individuals happy where they are. So joining that virtuous circle and offering the analytics, which is the Be Well and GEM. GEM is a mirror image of the health tool. It looks at the kind of wealth position of your members. The consultancy sits within the team that work with you in terms of structuring the solution viable for your business. And then Me Too is how we basically engage that viable solution into the workforce. So Me Too was launched last year as a wealth portal, focusing around pension freedom issues and concerns. And from last week, interestingly enough, is now a portal in terms of where members go and make choice. But rather than a traditional flex engine, what we've tried to do is step back. Barnett Waddingham is totally and utterly independent. For me, the real step back is to say to an individual, what issues and concerns do you have? I, as an employer, can't design something for you. I can't sit and go, Jack, what you need is X, Y, Z. Well, what I can do is give Jack the ability to sit there, one, assess himself, understand, because you're educating, not telling him, what benefits are on offer, and allowing him then to make choice. So what Jack is doing, and the white label things that you offer up here, starting to put together something pertinent and exactly what he is looking for. And that's Me Too. And as I say, we went live. And for me, it is all about that data feed, because you then take the data out of that, you reassess it through GEM and Be Well. And I think, to be honest, I'll leave it at that, because I've said my bit and what I wanted to say. So I'll ask one last question very, very quickly. Could you just give me an indication of how well you think your HR business strategies are aligned, and how much analytics do you, within HR, I think, do in terms of looking at these kind of issues? Okay. That, I have to say, was not the result I expected. However, I also thought that, and I thought I'd use this event almost as the Dragon's Den experience, because, as I say, for me, this is about building out a vision of what 2020 could look like. Hopefully, it does mean that there is opportunity that we can use that data and analytics to help you as an organisation. I suppose what I didn't ask is if you saw it as valuable. But as we're now going to go to questions, you may ask me that. Anyway, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Damian. Very engaging presentation. Questions? Have we got any questions from the audience? No questions about how... Yep, we've got Nikos. Thank you. Yeah. You can introduce yourself, Nikos. That'll be helpful.
Sorry, I've got something in my throat. So, last question about your yes and the no. For me, the big one is how robust are those analytics as well? So, I'll throw it to you. How robust are your analytics?
I think in terms of what we've built in the sphere that we know, the GEM analytics and the... So GEM being the wealth analytics, and in terms of the Be Well, I think Be Well is actually proving to be robust. We've now used it within businesses, and we are actually using it within our own business to look at making changes. Because, I talk about kind of this idea of changing culture. Barnett Waddingham is on that change journey itself. So robustness there. GEM, it's harder, because what you're trying to do is get data, and you can look at wealth, and it's mainly the thing you know, which is the pension that you provide people. Understanding other wealth or indebtedness is something that people are very shy about admitting to. I don't want to steal Neighbours' positioning in this marketplace, but we have worked with them in terms of how we can demonstrate some of that kind of indebtedness. They've certainly got the solution. We're not a product provider. We don't want to be a product provider. We also can extrapolate, because of the actuarial skill set, different cohorts, and use general available knowledge to start imprinting, where we think people are based on postcodes, etc. We also are able to potentially, going forward for the future, but this is for debate, anomalize the Me Too data, which is far more holistic in terms of wealth, and actually extrapolate that and put that back into what you as an organisation look like. So it's early days. Be Well, tick, GEM. I accept where there are gaps. The future, without a doubt, robust.
Thanks very much, Damian.
Absolute pleasure, thank you.
I'm going to wind up and move on to our next speaker.
Yes.